Let's get right into it. The federal government is on the verge of making a move that will completely rewrite the rules for real estate investors. Seriously, we could be looking at the end of real estate privacy as we've known it.
Go ahead and circle this date on your calendar, March 1st, 2026, because if you're an investor, I don't care if you own one little duplex or a huge portfolio of homes, this is a day that's going to go down in the history books. It's when a new federal rule kicks in that will change the entire game of investor anonymity for good.
So the million-dollar question is, does this actually affect you? Well, listen up. If you're a cash buyer, if you use hard money, or if you're into creative finance, things like subject-to deals or seller financing, the answer is 100% absolutely yes. This isn't some far-off maybe. This rule has your name written all over it.
So who's the wizard behind the curtain on this one? It's an agency you might not have heard of called FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. They're basically the Treasury Department's financial detectives, and they're the ones rolling out this brand new residential real estate reporting rule. Now, this isn't totally out of the blue. They've had these temporary things called geographic targeting orders, or GTOs, for a while. This new rule basically takes that old program, puts it on steroids, and makes it permanent, and nationwide.
To really get why this is happening, you have to understand the problem that FinCEN has been wrestling with for years, and it all boils down to what's known as the anonymity loophole in American real estate.
Yeah, this slide breaks it down perfectly. Think about it. When you get a normal mortgage, the bank has to follow all these anti-money laundering rules. They check who you are, they report sketchy stuff, there's a nice, clean paper trail for the feds. But what happens when someone waltzes in and buys a property with all cash or uses private money through an LLC? There's no bank. And up until now, nobody was legally required to say who was really pulling the strings behind that LLC. And that is the loophole.
And this quote just hits you right between the eyes, doesn't it? It perfectly sums up what keeps people at FinCEN up at night. This anonymity has created this massive blind spot that criminals and foreign adversaries can use to launder money, dodge sanctions, you name it.
So let's be really clear here. The whole point of this is to pull back the curtain and fight money laundering. FinCEN isn't trying to make life hard for the mom-and-pop landlord with a couple of rentals. They're trying to shut down a system that the bad guys have been using forever. The only problem is, the rule is so broad it catches pretty much every investor in its net, whether you're a criminal or just someone who wants to protect their assets.
Okay, so how do you know if your next deal is going to set off the alarm bells? It's actually pretty simple. It all comes down to what I'm calling the reporting trifecta. It's just a simple three-part test. All right, trigger number 1, the property itself. We're talking specifically about residential real estate. So that's anything from 1 to 4 units, your single-family homes, your duplexes, condos, that kind of thing. It even includes vacant land if it's zoned for a 1 to 4 unit home. What's not included? Bigger commercial stuff, like a 5-unit apartment building or a strip mall. Those are off the hook. Next up, trigger number 2. It has to be a non-financed purchase. Now, listen close, because this is where it gets a little tricky. Non-financed doesn't just mean you showed up with a suitcase of cash. It means any purchase you make without a loan from a big regulated bank that already has to do these anti-money laundering checks. So that means all cash deals for sure, but it also includes hard money loans, seller financing, and yes, even subject-to deals. And the final piece of the trifecta, trigger number 3. The buyer, the name actually going on the deed, is an entity or a trust. We're talking your classic LLC, a corporation, a partnership, or any kind of trust you'd use to hold property. If the property title is going into one of these, you've just hit the 3rd trigger.
And I really have to hammer this home. All 3 of these things have to be true for the same deal. It's not a pick one from column A situation. It has to be a non-finance purchase of a residential property by an entity. Boom, boom, boom. If you hit that trifecta, the rule is officially in play.
Okay, so let's say your deal hits the trifecta. What actually happens next? Who's in charge of telling the government, and what exactly are they going to say? Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
So here's a bit of good news for you, the investor. You're probably not the one who has to file this thing. FinCEN set up what they call a reporting cascade. It's basically a chain of command. The responsibility starts with the settlement agent. If there isn't one, it falls to the next person on the list, then the next, and so on. Long story short, your title company, escrow agent, or closing attorney is almost always going to be the one handling the paperwork.
So what's in this report? Well, this is the whole enchilada. FinCEN doesn't care that some faceless company like 123 Main Street Holdings LLC bought the property. They want to know who the real, flesh and blood person is behind that LLC. That's called beneficial ownership information. They'll report your name, your date of birth, your address, and your tax ID number. And on top of that, they're collecting all the details about the property, the buyer and seller, how much you paid, and how you paid for it.
Okay, now take a breath, because this is a really, really important point. All this information goes into a secure government database. It is not public record. This means your tenant can't just go online and look you up. A lawyer suing you for a slip and fall can't just find it. So its ending here is government anonymity. But your public anonymity, the kind that protects you from lawsuits and nosy people, that's still totally possible to maintain.
All right, so what if someone just ignores the rule? Well, the stakes are incredibly high. We're talking serious penalties. But, and this is the cool part, the rule itself actually gives us a roadmap for a clever and completely legal strategy to protect your privacy.
Let's talk about the stick first. Penalties. If you willfully violate this rule, meaning you knew you were supposed to report and you just didn't, you could be facing criminal fines of up to $250,000. And that's not per year, that's per violation. And if you think a massive fine is bad, it's not just about the money. We're talking jail time, up to 5 years in federal prison. Just let that sink in. You try to flip a few houses, ignore the paperwork, and suddenly you're looking at years behind bars. The feds are taking this incredibly seriously.
But okay, here is the light at the end of the tunnel. Buried deep inside the regulation itself is a beautiful little exemption. In plain English, it says that if you, an individual, transfer a property you already own into a trust that you created for yourself and no money changes hands, that specific transfer does not have to be reported. This right here, this is the golden key for savvy investors.
So how do we use this? It's a simple 3-step dance that keeps you 100% compliant while still getting you that public privacy. Step 1, you buy the property in your personal name first, okay? This gives the government the identity link they want. Step 2, immediately after you sign a second deed, transferring the property from your name into a land trust that you created. Remember, this move is exempt from reporting. And then the final step, you assign your ownership interest in that trust over to your LLC. That's not a deed transfer, so it's not reportable. And just like that, you've complied with the law, but on paper, your LLC is still protecting your asset. Pretty slick, right?
And that leaves us with the final big picture question, doesn't it? What is the government going to do with this massive new treasure trove of data, linking individuals to all this real estate? You know, this is probably about more than just catching a few bad guys. Could this be the foundation for a future wealth tax? If you're a Subject 2 investor, could banks start mining this data to hunt down and call your loans due? The downstream effects are huge, and it's something every single one of us needs to start thinking about long before that March 2026 deadline arrives.